I remember one day I began vomiting. Blood began to ooze out of my throat. I collapsed. Many thought that I would not survive. Later, I came to know that even my doctor had no hope that I would survive. When I constantly lived under the shadow of death, Jesus whispered to my soul, I am the resurrection and life. Living a life with Jesus is not about having everything perfect in your life, but living a happy life in the middle of imperfections and challenges. I am Abhilash Fraizer, an Indian writer hailing from Kerala. Although I was a fiction writer and poet initially, ever since I knew Jesus, the prime focus of my writing has been faith and spirituality. During my college days, I was living like any other guy until I came across the autobiography of Saint Augustine, The Confessions. It changed the view of my life drastically, and I was thinking about the meaning of life and the role of God in our life. At the end of my reflections and meditations, I finally decided to join a seminary. Thus, I joined the seminary of the Carmelites in 1993. While I was doing my philosophy course in the seminary, I got a severe back pain. It was so excruciatingly painful that often I had to walk around the seminary at night without being able to sleep. It continued for a long time, almost for a year, and I took a lot of treatments with no cure actually, and I did not know what was the exact reason for the back pain. In the hospital, I had no clue what was in store for me. My biopsy was taken and I was waiting for the result. During those days, there was a nun. One morning, she brought me a card decorated like a greeting card, on which it was written, I will never forget you, I have carved you on my palms. The words struck my mind and brightened my heart, spreading a beam of solace and hope. A few minutes later, my doctor, the nephrologist, came with my biopsy result. He said to me in a lower tone, Brother, the biopsy result has come and I have a problem with my kidneys. I was thinking that it was just another sickness which could be cured with medicines. But things were different. I was back in my monastery, the theology house, but often I was suffering a lot of pain, vomiting and other problems, and very often I used to skip my classes. One day, I was getting out of my theology college and I found the whole thing blurred. I looked and tried to read the names of the buses and it was very blurred and I was not able to read. By the grace of God, somehow I reached the monastery. Later, I tested my eyes and found that I had severe cataract as a result of high-dose steroids I had taken.
am Dr. Father Rajiv Michael. I am a clinical psychologist. I am a close friend of Abhilash, and during the theology training of preparing for the priesthood, that was when I experienced and witnessed the struggle that Abhilash went through because of his illness. He had to have different food, and he had to be confined to the room most of the time. He could not engage with other companions, other seminarians. So this was a difficult time. Gradually it started becoming more and more difficult because initially he had hope because medicines and treatments, he is thinking that things are getting better. But soon the realization came that there may not be medicines for it.
I continued this condition for a long time. I was under strict diet, unable to eat with my other brothers, and I had a separate food without salt, without oil, and a lot of other restrictions. There were days when I was allowed to take only 1 glass of water per day. When I felt thirsty, I used to quench my thirst licking ice cubes. As my authorities found that I needed proper care and proper diet and constant companionship, they discussed with my parents and sent me home for a better care. One day, I got a call from my aunt, who was a nurse in the army. She had made some research about my sickness. She told me that I was suffering from chronic renal failure, which did not have any cure. The only remedy was kidney transplantation. The world crumbled before me. I thought my life is going to end, and I fell into despair. During those days, there was a lot of misunderstandings surrounding kidney transplantation. My mother believed I would die if I underwent transplantation. So, almost for 2 years, I underwent various treatments, only resulting in deteriorating my health and aggravating my problems. One night, I began vomiting until blood began to ooze out of my throat. I collapsed. I was admitted in the intensive care unit. Nobody really cared for me when I was admitted because they did not know the seriousness of my sickness. Meanwhile, Archbishop of Varapuri, Dr. Daniel Acharya Parambil, was there, and he knew me. My mother approached him and said him that Abhilash is here. Immediately, the Archbishop rushed into the intensive care unit and asked the nurses to take care of me. Everybody were alert. The doctors rushed in and they took care of me, and I was put on frequent dialysis. I underwent almost 130 dialysis within the span of an year. Every alternative days, I had to undergo a dialysis, and I saw people dying around me. Those days, I had a Walkman, a musical Walkman with me, and I used to take the Walkman to the dialysis room and listen to the devotional songs which calmed my mind and filled me with hope. Many thought that I would not survive. Later, I came to know that even my doctor had no hope that I would survive.
Cantando a los pastores, cantando a las agalas, cantando al monte abajo, por la veredita.
Brother Abhilash came after his first profession with his mother, and we are very happy to see him.
Les guía con su vulgo a la luz que radia.
After some time we heard he's sick, and his master told us to pray for him because he's a promising candidate.
My superior from here wrote to me, pray very much for Brother Abhilash, that he is admitted in the hospital for kidney transplantation.
This Rani, his mother, always she's thinking of, if not he become a priest, he is a chosen person. It is true. God has maybe her prayers, especially the mother's prayer is something deep, no? As Mother Mary, although she saw his son suffering, she was very brave standing with him. So always his mother was standing with him. Even suffering inside, she was not caring so much for herself. Always her thought was in Abhilash, my son Abhilash. And I remember for the dialysis that time when we go also, we were feeling sad, but she was, one day everything will be okay. In that way she was talking.
It was at that time Abhilash wrote some songs. And one of the most beautiful songs that he wrote was about God the Father carrying a little child in his hand and then singing lullaby, taking care of the child, expressing how much the father loves the child. So during this struggle, he had gone to a point when nothing seems to be there to look forward to. But somewhere inside him, hope was taking him forward, and that hope was because of the love he experienced from the Father. And he expressed that in words, in lyrics. I gave music to them, and that became an album. You see, in a very difficult time of his life, a beautiful album of songs came out. And faith guided him to stay on, not give up.
When a year passed, there was a news about a new doctor who has come to Lakeshore Hospital, Ernakulam. His name was Dr. A.B. Abraham. He was a neighbor to my old home. So my mother finally agreed to take me to the new nephrologist who had come from the famous CMC Vellore Hospital. He was a very cordial man with strong faith. He said that we will try our best. The rest is in the hands of God. So my treatment was shifted to Lakeshore Hospital, and I underwent the remaining days of dialysis in that hospital. The doctor gave me every possible medicines and diet which could recuperate and improve my health. And finally, the day of my transplantation was fixed.
Abhilash Fraizer was brought to me by his father in 2003 with severe kidney failure. He was diagnosed to have a condition called focal and segmental glomerular sclerosis, which is often unresponsive to treatment. He was already initiated on dialysis, and they were looking at the prospect of a kidney transplantation. And father was actually willing to be the kidney donor. He was evaluated in detail, and 2 months later, Abhilash Fraizer underwent renal transplantation. Now it's almost 22 years.
After 1 year dialysis, doctors told us that kidney transplantation is the only remedy for the survival of my son Abhilash. They advised to find a donor. My wife, Abhilash's mother, was quite willing to give her kidney, but her kidney was not acceptable because she was a severe sugar patient. Then I told her that I am willing because my son's life is more important. Then the transplantation date was fixed, and in 2003 May, the transplantation is over, and till date we are okay, and God blessed us for our family.
When I woke up from the transplantation surgery, I was in the post-operative ICU for 3 days. Then I was shifted to the room. Later, I was taken back to my home, where I spent about 3 months in isolation. During those days, I had very severe infections, but God's grace and the timely interventions of my doctor, A.B. Abraham, helped me to recover from all those threats of life.
For us, inside, he's a Carmelite brother, and I think he's living in his strong faith and doing a lot for the church. God has his own plan, no, for each one.
When Brother Abhilash could not continue priesthood, I was really sorry. At that time, I decided I will continue to pray for him, same as if he was a priest. So I continued that way. So I am very happy now. Although he is not a priest, he is working for Jesus and for the salvation of souls. I feel Brother Abhilash as my own brother.
Brother Abhilash had a lot of suffering, sickness, and difficulties, and God stood with him all the time with his wings covering him under his mantle, and God fulfilled that plan in him, and now go on fulfilling at every moment.
A new life began for me. A new horizon was brightened. Like a toddler, I began to take few steps around my home. Now life began to smile at me, and God's blessing was beginning to shine on me.
Looking back, I think I am blessed to have this chance of witnessing what God has been doing in his life. He was going through such a big struggle, and there were no human answers. But in all this, what we have seen is someone going through one of the most difficult things that life can bring, like taking away all that you have, your health, your aspiration of becoming a priest, possibilities in front of you. Everything is slowly going. He did not come back to seminary. He did not become priest and preach as a priest. No, he did not come back.
When everything in life seemed dark and gloomy, Jesus walked into my life saying, "I am your light and salvation." He walked along with me through the valley of darkness. When I constantly lived under the shadow of death, Jesus whispered to my soul, "I am the resurrection and life." He touched my inner being, and I was alive again. He brought back my smile. He filled my heart with peace, enabled me to move ahead in life with confidence. Life becomes peaceful, bright and beautiful when Jesus shines in your life like the everlasting sun.
Now, looking back, we know what Abhilash has done or what God has achieved through him is something much more bigger. He's known all over the world. His writings are reaching everywhere, and he's writing about the love of God, and that is reaching everywhere, and it's not just reaching Christians or a limited audience. So God had a plan to raise him from the ashes, from a moment of complete loss to a height which God can give, the glory that God can give. And looking back, I'm also proud to walk along with him. I'm so proud of his big achievement. But I think there is more that is in store for him. God is there, and yes, he has put faith in him, and God is going to take him to bigger heights.
My life after my kidney transplantation was not always easy for me. I had infections, challenges, hospitalizations and so on. But my trust is in the Lord, in the words of the Lord. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "The hairs of your head are all counted," and I believe and trust in His words. He has a design for me, and He leads me as per His plan. Like my favorite hymn by Cardinal John Henry Newman, "Lead, kindly light, I believe in the words of the Lord, my shepherd, who leads me on, o'er moor and fen, o'er crag and torrent, till the night is gone. His love is my fortress, His promise is my strength." As the psalmist says, "The good shepherd will lead me through the valley of death. When He is with me, I will not fear, because He is a good shepherd who takes care of me, who loves me and leads me on in His path." For today, what I am absolutely indebted to my mother and father. My mother is not with me today, but I know that she's in heaven, praying for me, loving me, and interceding for me in the presence of God. And my daddy, words are not enough to thank my dad, because I am living on his kidney. It was his magnanimity and sacrifice that helped me to come back to life. When I went to see my wife Sunitha for the first time, I asked her what was her baptismal name. She told that it was Anastasia. Then I googled the meaning of the word Anastasia and found out that the meaning of Anastasia was Easter.
During our marriage preparation course, Abhilash told me about the life after transplantation and also told me that he has to take lifelong medicines. During the same course, a priest said, "Don't quit from this relationship." I took this as a message from God, and I realized that I didn't choose him, but God chose him for me. I never considered him as a patient, but some health challenges had happened in life. A few years ago, a sign of kidney rejection was detected. On 2022 Good Friday, he was admitted in the hospital due to severe food poisoning. Doctors were trying everything possible, but his blood pressure was going down. Since he was taking medicines to prevent kidney rejection, his body was not responding to medicines. The remedy was to insert a catheter from his neck to heart. They needed family's consent for that because there was a chance for the heart to bleed. All these were extremely shocking for me. I felt lonely. On Saturday morning, doctor told us that there were only two options, either ventilator or dialysis. We were all praying with all our hearts. The next day, his health started improving, and then I realized that it was an Easter Sunday.
The last 22 years, life for me has been braving the challenges of life, holding the hand of Jesus. I had to fight various infections over the years. Whenever I got infections, heavy doses of antibiotics were required. There were some episodes of hospitalizations, sometimes in a life-threatening state. Going through the COVID-19 pandemic days was a real challenge. I had to be carried in an ambulance to the hospital and had to be administered special medicines for recovery. There was another episode of spending 3 days intensive care unit in a critical state. Signs of wear and tear are evident in my transplant kidney. But I can say one thing for sure. God had been with me all through my trials. He gave me the grace to cling to Him in faith whenever I was faced with life-threatening challenges. Those days of sorrow and shadows were just a ways of God to lead me close to Him. I can see His blessings shining bright. He has given me everything and has kept me safe. My days of sorrows have gone, and I never look at my sufferings as my loss, but I know that they were God's graces strengthening me, enlightening me, and filling my soul with the light of God. The most touching words I have ever experienced in my life, the chapter 11 from John. I am the resurrection and life. He who believes in me will never die, but will have eternal life.